can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering Paranormal.
He meddled in things that you keep before. He meddled in things. He meddled in things.
Where will we go next? Just phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Muller.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hello, I'm Alex Daikaiju.
I'm Jasmine with
And I'm Eli Watson.
And we are
Cryptid
Campfire.
woohoo! Hello everyone, and welcome back to Cryptid Campfire. I'll be honest with you. Honesty is the best policy. I have no idea what episode number we are today. I've been doing a little time travel. I jumped a week ahead, got my research ready for today, but I have no idea how we should start this episode off properly because we've had a format, introduced the format, and now let's switch it up a little bit.
We are still on our world tour, though. This is Cryptid Campfire World Tour. Welcome to the Tome. Also, shout out to everybody who are watching us on YouTube right now. For those of you who don't know or haven't heard the news yet, we do have video versions of our podcast available on the Paranormal Network's YouTube channel. So be sure to head over there and like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. And thank you for those of you tuning into the audio version on your favorite podcast platform. We had a little bit of a miscommunication last week to where Alex researched the wrong thing, but it was still the right thing for this week. And then something happened to where now Jasmine doesn't have research for today because she had appendicitis over the weekend. Yeah. So I'm here today with absolutely no research. I literally only know the name of what we are talking about today, but I still wanted to participate. I still wanted to be here with you guys. I wanted to learn, be a part of it, because Cryptid Campfire was a part of me discovering my appendicitis. There's actually a clip from our call last week when we were recording the Nandi Bear episode. I literally on screen, on call, randomly was like, I think I have appendicitis. And for fun, I've asked Eli to insert that clip into this episode.
Last week. So anyways.
What side of my body is my appendix on?
I don't know.
Maybe I'm not even going to guess.
Are you worried about it?
Okay.
It might just be gas. It might be appendicitis.
Oh, no. Now.
Dun dun.
So yeah, I spent 2 days in the hospital and then took the rest of the week easy. Took some days off work, so I did not do any research. But I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to be a listener. I'm ready to listen to Cryptid Campfire.
Yeah. All right, everyone, dig in. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got 3 screens going for you. And just like the 3 holes needed in an appendectomy, we're digging in for the meaty knowledge.
Oh, gross.
So true. It's true, guys. They poke 3 holes in you, and then through one of those holes, I guess they pull your appendix out. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
And we're gonna do a little game. We're gonna give Jasmine 3 options.
Okay.
And various trivia throughout the episode. Okay. So what is the Kongamato? That is not the question. I'm asking Alex. What is the Kongamato?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes. Someone who knows. Yes.
Okay. You want me to lay it out there for you?
Yeah. Give me that description.
All right. Kongamatos are large pterosaur-like cryptids said to be living in the semi-tropical regions of Africa. Is what I'll say as the kind of Jeopardy answer for you.
There you go. So the first question for Jasmine. The Kongamato, its name means A, crasher of cars, B, breaker of boats, or C, destroyer of airplanes.
Do.
Well, let's see. Alex said pterosaur-like, and if I remember correctly, pterosaurs are flying.
Mhm.
dinosaurs. So it would either be B or C. I feel like B could be like one of those like nosedive type situations. Because you said B was the boat one, right? Boat
Breaker of
crasher.
boats. Yes.
Yeah, so either that or the one in the sky, which was what?
Destroyer of airplanes.
Destroyer of airplanes or boats. That's a trick question. I'm gonna
Did you
go with
wanna-
B.
You got it correct.
Woohoo!
So Kongamato means the breaker of boats, which can seem a bit confusing because it is a pterosaur. So we'll break that down even further. Pterosaur is just picture a pterodactyl. That's basically what it is. Pterosaur technically includes more than just pterodactyls, but other flying dinos, if you will.
They come in all kinds of shapes and varieties, like pterosaur type dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm. They do. And so the reason why the Kongamato is known as the breaker of boats is because of its associated powers, which supposedly, according to the legend, is that it can cause rivers to stop flowing and water levels to rise. And sometimes, if you're paddling down a river, you'll just stop for no apparent reason and you can't get moving again. And that's because the Kongamato will have grabbed your boat from underneath, meaning that it's somewhat aquatic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not my theory about nose diving down from the sky and attacking the boats.
But it is, and we'll get there. So,
you assume maybe they can kind of skim into the water, kind of float down there, hold their breath for 2-3 minutes, enough to get under a boat, and then snap underneath it and fly away.
you could. It might. So as for the location, we're not actually going very far from last week's episode from Kenya. We are going to Zambia, the Congo, and Angola, to name a few. There's actually a couple other countries with pterosaur-like creatures that may or may not be the Kongamato, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
But it's there. Those are actually like right next door to Kenya. So, and actually, there are some reports from Kenya, so we'll get into that. So could it be possible a Kongamato versus a Nandi bear? Could it be real?
We go back to the Coliseum.
Oh, yeah. If you're a new listener, you have no idea what that means, and you're in for a surprise. It's kind of crazy because we're talking about the Kongamato, which is said to be a pterosaur-like cryptid in Africa. And if there's one thing I've learned during Cryptid Campfire, Africa is just full of dinosaurs.
Yep. It seems to be.
Because when you were mentioning that it's said to raise the water levels and affect boats, oh, that sounds like Macaulay and Mbembe did the same thing.
Yep. It did.
So that was kind of wild to think.
I was reading about a couple other dinosaurs as well from Africa, which I just feel like we could do probably like a whole tome on African dinosaurs.
Oh, don't they have the Kaisai Rex?
They do. And they also have a supposed like Stegosaurus and just all sorts of crazy stuff. I don't know. I'm like, oh, wow. All right.
It makes me want to go back to Universal and ride Jurassic World again.
You can.
Oh, man.
Can we insert the photo that I sent you guys from when we went or when I went with my roommate?
Yeah, we totally can.
I got really lucky with nobody sitting beside me. I was able to fully lay back and look up at the T-Rex and Indominus Rex. It was great.
Yeah, Jasmine broke the rules of the ride and did not sit in an upright position.
Whoops.
Getting back to the Kongamato here, a couple other descriptors. The wingspan, the first wingspan that I got was that it's about 10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, more realistic, was the 3 to 7 feet. And I say more realistic in quotations because it's the only one that I actually came across in reports. The 10 footer I didn't find.
Did you get any other sizes?
No.
Oh, okay. I got this is an exclusive from Cryptids Wikis with a Z.com.
Oh boy, here we go.
One source boasts up to 100-foot long wingspan.
Where does that come from? Where did they get that information?
It's great too, because if you go on the website, it says, anywhere from 4 to 100 feet long.
That's such a big range.
Like, if there's one thing I love, it's just like, oh yeah, it could be anywhere from 4 to 100. Yeah, it kind of changes. Like, whew, what am I looking at here?
Yeah. I also got that it is supposedly likes to hang around the Giundu swamp.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I got that too. In Northern Zambia.
In Northern Zambia, yes.
You know, it's if there's one thing, because we're looking at African continents, countries. What's the right term? Areas.
African
regions?
countries, yeah.
Okay. Listen, geography is like my enemy. It is my mortal enemy. But it's different when you look at a word and then you hear someone pronounce it.
Did you get its coloration?
I got something of like a reddish hue to it.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Usually a reddish hue. My sources say like bat-like wings with the kind of membrane.
Yeah.
And usually a big, long, toothy beak.
Yeah, which interesting. It's got a beak, but it also has teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Sometimes evolution says, you know what? Just have everything.
Just have it all, except for feathers. So, anyways, let's get to the first kind of reports, shall we?
Yeah, what you got for us, fella?
Yeah, so the first written report comes from a man named Frank Melland, author of a book called In Witchbound Africa, in which he describes the Kongamato, and he's hanging out with the Kawanda tribe. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So he's talking to them about several of the creatures around. He's just kind of documenting the fauna of Zambia. And he writes, further inquiries disclosed the facts that the wing spread was about 4 to 7 feet across and that the general color was red. It was believed to have no feathers, but only skin on its body, and was believed to have teeth in its beak. These last 2 points no one could be sure of, as no one ever saw a Kongamato and lived to tell the tale. I sent for 2 books, which I had at my house, containing pictures of pterodactyls, and every native present immediately and unhesitatingly picked it out and identified it as a Kongamato. Among the natives who did so was a headman, Kanyinga, from the Giundu country, where the Kongamato is said to be active.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that just kind of covers everything we just talked about, that's where it comes from.
It's interesting too, because so they actually had a picture book, right, of dinosaurs
Mm-hmm.
that he was showing off, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it's right there."
Yeah.
So it's interesting because whenever we look into different cryptids and like myths and legends, and every time it's like, there's something in a strange region. Oh, the people don't know what they're talking about. You know, they've only been born and raised in the area and known it. And then someone comes with a picture and they're like, oh yeah, we know what that is. Like you're calling it a, pterodactyl, but that's a Kongamato us.
Yeah. Right. And one of the things too, that I always come across is it's still the presumption that they don't know what they're talking about and that it's a simple misidentification, right? It's like, the reports of the Nandy Bear and the descriptions, the sighting reports literally say, oh, it's bigger than a hyena. And they're like, well, that means it's just a misidentified hyena. And it's like, no, he's literally saying it's not a hyena. Like, and so people will say, oh, well, the Kongamato is just a misidentified bird. And it's like, well, the natives know what birds are. They know what they look like and specifically have a different word for the Kongamato, So it's like, I don't understand that.
Yeah. There's always that disconnect of not listening to the people who are closest to whatever you're trying to discover.
Right. But it's also interesting because Melland also recorded reports from the locals as well. So he was obviously in a discourse talking about different fauna. He came across the Kongamato, didn't know what it was. They identified it as one of the pterodactyls in his book, and he just continued talking about it and got another report from 1911. So this would place it, I think, 12 years before he was there, where 2 men and 2 women were killed by a Kongamato in the Mutanda River near Lufumatunga. And he was like, well, how did they die? And they're like, well, they were killed in a flood because the Kongamato can cause floods. And he was like, I don't know about that. That he writes commentary. He's like, I don't know if I really believe you can attribute that death to the Kongamato. That might have just been an actual flood.
Yeah. And even an actual flood is like, even a flood caused by the Kongamato is an actual flood. It's not like it's a fake flood or
right.
non-existent flood. It's just a natural flood is what we're thinking.
Yeah.
Like a fancy Mysterio trick.
Yeah.
All just special effects. Yeah.
Unless the Kongamato can legitimately do it. I mean, could you imagine? Like, it just flies up ahead and you see it above and it's flapping its wings and storm clouds are swirling around it. Wouldn't that be cool?
I mean, as humans, we take it for granted that we're the top of the food chain, baby. Because who knows? What if out there was the next apex predator that kept humanity in line, and it's a pterodactyl that can control the weather?
Just saying, dude.
It's just like, whew. All right, everyone. We're like number 2 on evolution's victories.
Okay, so I have another report here from 1928, and this is actually from Kenya. And what are you laughing at?
You repeated the word Kenya. In my mind, I heard, can you believe it?
We missed our opportunity to make that joke last episode, didn't we?
I guess so.
And the streak continues.
So this guy named Blaney Percival, who was stationed in Kenya, writes in his book, A Game Warden on Safari, quote, the Kitui Wakamba tell of a huge flying beast which comes down from Mount Kenya by night. They only see it against the sky, but they have seen its tracks. More, they have shown these to a white man, saying he could make nothing of the spoor, which betrayed 2 feet and apparently a heavy tail. I mean, there's nowhere in here that states it's the Kongamato. But the fact that it has a tail, it has 2 feet, and flies matches what you would think of a pterosaur. Kongamato also supposedly has a tail as well. So,
because what you can take away from it is the Kongamato is flying across different regions. It's not just contained, or there's 2 different types of flying monsters.
There could be.
Because
there's always 2 kinds.
Oh.
There's the normal size and the mega size.
We gotta get since deep fakes are becoming so popular these days, we should have a deep fake of Quint from Jaws saying, there's always 2 types. There's the regular kind and the mega kind.
I wish I knew how to do deep fakes, dude.
They're the future.
Maybe.
But I found in a note in connection with a game warden on safari in Kenya, the same creature is called Badamzinga.
Ah, yes. Thank you. I was looking for the name. Yeah, the Badamzinga. That's what it's called. What do you make of it?
I mean, it's such a good way to describe if you saw someone get carried away by a giant pterodactyl and someone asked you what happened, Badazinga.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. That's a good catchphrase. Let's take it. Let's use it. Badamzinga.
Badamzinga. Meanwhile, describing this like terrible legend monster that's killed more than 400 people.
Adam Zinga, dude.
What are you gonna do?
Well, this next report comes from 1932. And this comes from my boy. I try to bring him up as much as I can. It's all right, Jasmine. Who is it?
I think I know who it is.
Don Cheadle. Oh yeah.
Yeah, here we go. Option A, Don Cheadle. B, Andy Grammer. Or C, Ivan T. Sanderson.
Oh, let me think. It was probably Ivan T. Sanderson. Yeah.
Wrong. It's Don Cheadle.
Or was it Black Yoshi 69?
Black Yoshi. Is that what you were gonna guess earlier?
Maybe.
Black Yoshi 69.
He's out there, man, and he's got the truth to uncover.
If you guys don't get that reference, please listen to the Duendes episode.
Yeah, and if you do get that reference, go back to Duendes anyway. Give it a re-listen. I'm sure you'll enjoy it again.
So, 1932, let's set the stage. Ivan T. Sanderson is on an expedition in Cameroon, actually. It's always associated with the Kongamato, but I found that he wasn't in Zambia. And in fact, where he was in Cameroon, the locals describe it as the Olitau. Similar thing, a nocturnal creature, bat-like. It flies, has a tail, whatnot. So he writes, and I'm not sure which book this is in. This might be the Great Book of Jungles. I don't really know. But Sanderson writes, and I looked, and then I let out a shout also, and instantly bobbed down under the water, because coming straight at me, only a few feet above the water, was a black thing the size of an eagle. I had only a glimpse of its face, yet that was quite sufficient, for its lower jaw hung open and bore a semicircle of pointed white teeth set about their own width apart from each other. When I emerged, it was gone. George was facing the other way, blazing off his second barrel. I arrived dripping on my rock, and we looked at each other. Will it come back? We chorused. So dramatic. Anyways, and just before it became too dark to see, it came again, hurtling back down the river, its teeth chattering, the air shing. That's what he writes, as it was cleft by the great black Dracula-like wings. We were both off guard. My gun was unloaded, and the brute made straight for George. He ducked. The animal soared over him and was at once swallowed up in the night.
Whoa. Oh.
Yeah, that's
the thing that sticks out most for me in that story is that's a completely different color than most of the other reports, right?
Indeed. This is, and also, I mean, the wing size matches still if you're going off the definitely the more realistic compared to the Cryptids wiki, the 3 to 7 feet. It still matches, but again, it is black, more what you would expect from a bat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and this happened at night, right?
the first one happened probably in the afternoon, and then it was almost dark when they saw it again.
Because I was going to say, if it was almost dark for both of those times, then it's also highly possible that it did have a red color. It just wasn't visibly red in the dark.
Mm. Yeah, no, he saw it in broad daylight when he described it as black. So, and he also drew a sketch.
Oh, really?
Yes, there's a sketch online of it that I hunted down.
Let's throw that up on Still Scam. I mean, it's crazy that the thing that sticks out to me is Iverson dropping the D word, just straight up Dracula-like wings.
That's Sanderson for you.
I like how you called him Iverson.
Iverson, yeah.
Is that not his name?
It's Ivan Sanderson.
Sanderson.
It's Ivan Sanderson. What is his name again? Who's this man?
Is Ivan T. Sanderson, and you said Iverson.
Ivan Iverson.
You shortened it. You gave him a nickname. Combined the two, Iverson.
We because up on defense we got Iverson, and up on 2-point offense we got Hurricane Hynek.
Anyways, 1942, Captain Charles R.S. Pittman He wrote, and I don't know why the website I was reading from said this like it was a grandiose work. They're like, it's a nearly 300-page volume. Like, it's pretty standard for what it's describing, because it's about the fauna of Uganda and the surrounding areas. So that's the animal life that had never been really documented before by Westerners. So,
And they could only get 300 pages worth of it. Jeez.
I don't know. Have you read any of Stephen King's books?
I
Those are
have.
long. I know you have, but anyways, he writes in, I don't have the name for it, but in this 300-page volume, of which I will only read 10 pages of. No, just kidding. I have this one paragraph here in which he writes, when in Northern Rhodesia, I heard of a mythical beast alleged to have a similar death-dealing attribute, which intrigued me considerably. It was said to haunt formerly, and perhaps still to haunt, a dense, swampy forest region in the neighborhood of the Angola and Congo borders. To look upon it, too, is death, but the most amazing feature of this mystery beast is its suggested identity with a creature, bat, and bird-like in form on a gigantic scale, strangely reminiscent of the prehistoric pterodactyl. From where does the primitive African derive such a fanciful idea? Biases aside, that is pretty interesting, right?
I mean, I think when you grow up with it, it's not too hard of an idea to think of.
I don't know. Okay, to clarify his last point, okay, yes, he is biased. Secondly, it being a fanciful idea is that dinosaurs had only been discovered recently, like the 1890s.
And the iguanodon, I think, was one of the first ones they found.
The iguanodon, exactly. And so, and really, dinosaurs were still a relatively new concept to the world, and obviously thought to be extinct, and only people in certain societies had access to museums where they could go see dinosaur bones. And certainly Northern Rhodesia was not one of those places where they were excavating dinosaur bones and putting them on display in museums in 1942. So for him, it was like, how did they even know that a pterodactyl is a thing?
Yeah.
Unless it's real, unless they had seen it, which they did.
Very interesting. And also, I had no idea that dinosaurs were only discovered towards the 1890s? That's crazy.
Yeah, right?
The theory of evolution was thought up before dinosaurs were even discovered. So isn't that pretty nuts? Dinosaurs are new, people.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Cool.
We love some dinosaurs here on the show, is what I'm trying to say.
Because dinosaurs are rock, dude.
You guys ever see Jurassic Park? Come on now.
Dude, you ever been to Dinosaur, Colorado? Brontosaurus Avenue?
You ever go on Jurassic World, the ride at Universal Studios Hollywood?
Yeah.
We were there. We were in the front row, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
VIP treatment.
We were. I remember I was like, we're not going to get wet because it's going to go right over us.
Yeah. And that's what happened.
It is.
The water went right over us.
Mm-hmm.
And then down on top of us. This takes us to our next sighting. I mean, this episode is just going to be like back-to-back sightings. So 1956, a man named Dr. J.L.B. Smith.
Oh, yeah. This guy's cool.
You know about this. Who was actually involved in the rediscovery of the coelacanth.
Which is pretty wild to think of. We just talked about, dinosaurs, new concept. They just found them in the ground. This is kind of crazy. And then here's this guy like 50 years later being like, oh, hey, I found a living fossil.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been cool. Like, I hope we find a T-Rex next.
Hey, the Cassi Rex, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Or Australia, the Beringer.
What's that one?
It's a T-Rex.
Oh,
well, Australia.
I'll take that one too.
So 1956, JLB Smith, or Dr. JLB Smith, writes in his book, Old Forelegs. Nice creative title.
Yeah.
He describes reports of flying dragons near Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. That's interesting.
What country?
Tanzania.
Tanzania?
Oh, yeah, Tanzania. Good. It looks like Tanzania. You could.
That's what I was reading it as. So I was like, oh, okay,
Tanzania.
yeah, I'm totally on board for it.
It is totally Tanzania, but
I mean, I kept thinking of Tasmania, where the Tasmanian Devil TV show was from.
no, see, that's where it gets confusing, right? There's Tasmania and then there's Tanzania. And it's like everything about that word suggests it should be said Tanzania.
Tanzania.
It's not. You know, what do we say about that? What do we say? We say
Bottomzinga.
Bottomzinga. Yeah, that's the one. Bottomzinga.
This is the point where I would like to add, we don't claim to be experts. We're just a couple of good friends getting together, talking about some cryptids around a campfire. Never claim to be experts. So bear with us as we mispronounce our way around the world, baby.
Well, also diverging in 1956. Oh, whoa. We got JBL and we got JPF Brown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is an interesting situation, and this is considered one of the more credible Kongamato sightings. But he basically was working at a place called Fort Rosebery, which, as I understand, is known as Mansa now in Zambia. It was April 2nd, 1956. So consider the date. After April Fool's Day, it's not April Fool's, so he wasn't joking.
Confirmed.
Yeah. He reports this to the Rhodesia Herald. So he's driving back to Salisbury after visiting Kasenga. What those places are, kind of meaningless to me because I don't know what they are. But anyways, Fort Rosebery is like halfway in between. He stops there, is getting his canteen out of his trunk, and he sees them flying silently above. Not one, but two. Wingspan of about 3 and 3.5 feet. And he reported that he saw one of them open its mouth, and that's where it had teeth.
I also have that he reported it was like around 6 p.m. that night.
Yeah.
When he saw him. So I assume just still enough daylight to kind of see him. But he didn't describe a color, right?
No. And maybe he couldn't really tell the color correctly if it was 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
and the sun was going down.
Yeah, and it doesn't say like, because sometimes these reports just say, 20 feet above me in the air or 150 feet off in the distance, to where there's no, he doesn't give a distance, right? He just says he saw him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that he says they have a long tail and a narrow head, because that kind of fits in with pterodactyl, but he doesn't. I wonder if they have the like the crest.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about a crest, but interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I got other reports, and where these reports come from, I have no idea. But there's claims, rumors, whispers, if you will, that Kongamato lives in caves in cliffs near the base of the Zambezi River.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on the maps and tried to find the base of the Zambezi River, which turns out it flows directly from another river. And so the one river comes down and splits into a Y and makes two rivers, and both those rivers are called the Zambezi River. And there's no cliffs around it from what I could tell. Also, it was a satellite image, super compressed. So I don't know, maybe there is. I should have looked at the topography. Dang. Anyways, 1957, also at Fort Rosebery, a patient comes in with a wound in his chest. And I have this quote here, that when the hospital staff asked him what had attacked him, the man described a large bird-like creature with a long beak and huge wings. And so they're like, we don't know what you're talking about, dog. And they asked him if he could draw the animal for better identification. And
While he's bleeding out. Oh gosh.
Mhm.
I'm sure they took care of him.
Ain't that always the way? You're there filling out paperwork with like a open wound, being blood everywhere.
Hey man, that is how it is.
Yeah, usually when you get to the hospital, when you get to the doctor, the emergency room, most of the time you have to find parking first, especially if you're driving yourself. And then you go into the waiting room and they don't even take you back right away. They say, why are you here? You got to fill out a form. You got to take a survey to say you haven't had exposure to COVID. Then you sit in the waiting room waiting for your appendix to burst. And then they finally take you back and do a bunch of tests on you. Anyways.
Mondays, am I right?
But anyways, so they ask him if he can draw the animal for better identification. Wow, we got really off. And so he produced a drawing that resembled a pterosaur. And so to further confirm this, a servant working at the hospital brings in a book containing images of prehistoric animals and shows him a picture of a pterosaur, and the wounded man was described as going into a screaming panic.
Whoa.
Which I don't know if I buy that, because he also drew a picture of one. So
it's a difference when you see a highly rendered illustration versus probably his like bloody hand scribble.
Oh my goodness.
They're like, sir, before we can get you into the surgery room, what did this to you?
I know.
As he's bleeding and just like gasping everywhere. It's like, the scene, what you described, Eli, it sounds just like the first chapter of Jurassic Park, the book.
It does, huh?
We bring up Jurassic Park a lot because it's very important to society. But in the original novel by Michael Crichton, the very first scene is a small little ER off the coast of Costa Rica, right?
I think it's on Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like raining, there's a storm, and then the doors just burst open and like 5 people come in with this guy who just has a giant described like claw, like almost cuts across his chest, and he's like bleeding and gurgling everywhere, and it's like complete panic and madness. And the doctor's trying to investigate because they're saying a big machinery, he got caught in machinery and it cut him up. But the doctor's looking and it's like more like serrated cuts, and there's even like some kind of like saliva or some kind of like oily residue there. And as the man's like laying there dying, they're like, what happened? I think he just says the word raptor with his final dying breath. And then they look it up and it means large bird of prey or prehistoric animal.
Yeah, dude. That book is pretty sick, dude. It's a lot scarier than the movie.
Oh man, it's terrifying, and the ending is kind of wild compared to what happens in the movie.
Really? I should read the book.
You got it. Hi, Cryptid Campfire recommends 1987's Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, the novel.
Dang, really? 1987, huh?
I think he started writing in 87. It maybe got published 89, 90. I'm sure I'm wrong in every number I just said, so please write in the comments.
Well, the movie came out in 1992, so it would have to be sometime before that the book came out.
I thought it came out in 93.
You know what? Maybe my dates are wrong too. Jurassic Park was the first movie that I got to see in a theater as a literal infant. Of course, I don't remember it.
Dang.
Wild.
First movie I remember seeing was Attack of the
93.
Clones. Oh, sick. I got it right.
93.
Well, we're going to 96, which is the year Tupac's double album, All Eyes on Me, came out.
We have so many trivia points in this episode.
Connect the dots. You'll start seeing a pattern.
Yes. So here we go. Some facts here. So a man named Dick Hobson writes in this book, Tales of Zambia. I think he recounts Frank Mellon's he was the guy who first wrote about the Kongamato. So he recounts a little bit of that same information, but adds this on, where he talks about a charm that the people of the Kawanda tribe wear, or actually false. They don't wear. It's called the Muchi wa Kongamato, and this is how it works. So they make it from the root of the mulendi tree and mix it with water, and it becomes a paste. And then they place it into a bark cup and sprinkle it into the water using a bundle of mulendi bark strips. And this supposedly wards off the Kongamato and its floods.
Interesting. Because I had found the talk of them carrying charms, but it didn't describe what it was.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess we're screwed in case we ever encounter a Kongamato. We don't have these fancy charms to repel it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought when it said charm, I was thinking like a little trinket or something.
Yeah, maybe like a carved pterodactyl that looks, like a cool kind of idol. You got to carry it with a big necklace, and if the Kongamato sees you, it makes a force field.
Yeah, but no, it's a paste, and you throw it in the water.
It always is.
I guess. And I think this is the final kind of report here from 1998, and this isn't even a report. This is, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to explain why I find it funny, because this comes from a Kenyan exchange student who was living in Louisiana. His name was Steve Romandi Menya, and he said that the Kongamato is still known in his country, the bush-dwelling people of Kenya, as he described them. It's still known to them. And he says that they feed on decomposing flesh and will even dig up bodies that aren't buried deep enough. And I think that's funny because this dude was a foreign exchange student just trying to go to school in the States. And we're here talking about him 20 some years later because he said something about the Kongamato. He was like, oh, you guys know what that is?
I mean, not only did he proceed to be like, oh, you guys know what that is? Did you know about this? And just drop completely new info. Up until this point, we knew that they destroyed boats, but now they're grave robbers.
Well, honestly, this reminds me of the roping a little bit. Remember, there's that report where it stole the person they were trying to bury, essentially. I think that's pretty interesting. So could that suggest that they're carrion eaters, like a vulture?
I mean, food's food when you're out in the wild. Can't be too picky.
Amen. That takes us to what? Explanations?
Yes.
So from what I'm hearing from you guys, the Kongamato tends to be on the side of more credible possible cryptid, because we've talked about stuff in the past that is just straight up fake, scam, hoax, unlikely, fiction, whatever. But then we do also have things like this where, there's some credible sightings, there's some historical tie-ins, some biological tie-ins. So it sounds to me like we're more on the side of it could be a thing.
Could be. Yeah. There's also no reports after 1956. So actually, Carl Schuker, who you brought up last week, he thinks it's extinct now.
Yeah, that tends to happen with a lot of things that I've read about. I think he also said that about the Nandi bear as well, because there haven't been any sightings super recent either. It's possible that they were a thing back then, but then, as time goes on, they also became extinct. So
honestly, I could see that being the case because even known animals like rhinos and stuff, they're going extinct, and it doesn't help. A lot of the countries we're talking about are pretty politically unstable. There's a lot of wars going on over there, and animals tend to get the worst of that, I mean, everything we do, bombs, guns, tend to hurt the animals or hurt the environment. So if you blow up all the trees, then the giraffes can't eat anything, So it's unfortunate, but I could see that being the case.
Oof. I mean, it's kind of wild to think, you look at all this research, you look into it, and it's there's something new in the world. And right as you're about to find it, it goes extinct.
Yeah. As far as explanations go, I got this from the Cryptid Wiki.
Oh, with a Z?
with the Z, the Cryptids wiki. And so this is probably my favorite explanation of any explanation ever on the show. And it's just one sentence. The whole section is one sentence. And I read word for word. It could be a case of mistaken identity, although it could also be a living pterosaur.
It's that kind of hard biting search for knowledge that I go to Cryptid Wiki with a Z for.
Oh, that sums it all up.
I
I mean, honestly, I have no idea.
just, it's another part of the world, a whole nother culture, a whole nother side of the world. And they're talking about dinosaurs, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool because it's got to be something to it. There's got to be some kind of wild, because just last week we talked about that there's snails that live in volcanoes. So anything's possible,
That is true. Wild. I don't know, dude. But I guess that brings us to a close.
I have one final thing to throw out.
Pop culture? Oh.
Let me guess. Godzilla?
No, surprisingly. Surprisingly not. Missed opportunity, I think, to have the Kongamato be a Titanus Kongamato and Godzilla King of the Monsters.
You already got Rodan.
You have Rodan, he's got to fight the Van Nader visitor, and then he's got to go on the world tour of fighting all these pterodactyls.
There you go.
But this will be a fun little pop culture. I want to ask you guys specifically, do you guys know anything about Final Fantasy?
I don't even know what that is.
Okay, good. All right. So,
whoa. The video game?
Yeah.
I do. There's like a million of them. I'm surprised. Wow, that's crazy. So, I've never played it. I've never done anything with it, but I know of it.
So Eli, you know about it. Jasmine, you have no idea. So here's what Final Fantasy is. In the late 80s, Nintendo made the Nintendo game system. And one of the games on it was an RPG called Final Fantasy, where you play as kind of like a Tolkien fantasy inspired world where you're like a wizard and a barbarian and you go to fight this great evil. And it's really, really famous for the fact that its name is a total and complete lie. Because Final Fantasy goes on to have, like Eli said, millions of sequels.
Dude, it's still going.
And so that takes us to the Kongamato makes an appearance as an enemy in Final Fantasy XIV.
Which is what in Roman numerals? Because I don't
14.
know.
14.
Oh, wow.
But not just that, Jasmine. It's a spin-off. So Final Fantasy 14 came out and then it wasn't really that well received. So they made a spin-off called Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, which is like a reboot set in the world.
That's wild.
What?
And I'll send you guys a picture in the chat of what it looks like. And we can throw it up on StillScam for all the lovely listeners at home. So here's what it looks like. And then I'll proceed to describe to you words that make no sense whatsoever.
That's not a Kongamato.
So it looks like a weird kind of like abstract artist, ostrich, pterodactyl thing. But so after hatching an egg laid by the riverbanks, the Kongamato larva spends its early life as a water-dwelling insect. Its maturity is signified by metamorphosis, during which its wings sprout forth and it takes to the skies. Kongamato can be fickle, very fickle, but they always return us to home. Vath Kintamor in-game description. Okay. And then to throw some more nonsense words at you, the Kongamato is a mount that can be purchased by Vath Stick Peddler for 200,000 gil after achieving rank 7, parentheses sworn, from Vath Beast Tribe. And then introducing patch 3.2.
Yeah, that was all a different language, kind of like when you try to explain sports to me.
Yeah, that sounds like a typical role-playing game that I would never play. That's like why I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, because
it's just a bunch of nonsense words thrown at you.
And okay, I honestly feel like since that game makes up a bunch of terms, they probably made up a bunch of terms and one of them happened to be Kongamato, spelled exactly the same way. Like
possible.
And on that bombshell, think that's the end.
I think that is the end, and I hope y'all enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I disappointed anybody for not having anything to contribute to this episode, but I was a little under the weather, having recovered and still recovering from my surgery. But like I said, I still wanted to hang out with you guys, be a part of it, learn about the Kongamato. So thank you so much, Eli and Alex, for giving me that research and telling me about those sightings. I enjoyed listening to you guys. It was cool being, a little less stressed. I was able to just listen.
Yeah. And you got 2 out of 2 questions correct.
I did. Wait, what were the 2 questions? Oh yeah, it was Ivan T. Sanderson and Destroyer of Boats, right?
Boat breaker, I think.
Breaker.
Wait, basher of boats.
Boat breaker.
Breaker of boats.
Dream maker.
Moving on. If you guys are a fan of the show, consider subscribing. If you guys are watching the video, subscribe to the channel, the Paranormal Network. Give us a thumbs up. And also leave a comment. Say nice things or a negative thing if you just are that vindictive.
Be honest,
No, don't. Anyways, subscribe to us, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a nice review. That'll help us get bigger and able to produce more podcasts for you all. Visit cryptidcampfire.com. Get yourself an exclusive t-shirt. The new ones are $22 plus shipping, which is only $3. So for $25, you get yourself a snazzy t-shirt.
Oh yeah. Don't miss out on the wave. You see plenty of cool crypto people wearing a Cryptid Campfire shirt these days.
You do.
Yes, you do. And if you've done all that and you still need more, consider subscribing to our Patreon page. You get an exclusive wallpaper designed by our very own Alex Daikaiju every month, as well as 2 exclusive episodes that come out for the Patreon listeners. So that is $5 a month. Gets you all that, as well as the entire backlog of exclusive episodes we've released before. And then on top of that, I think that's it. I mean, well, actually, Alex, tell us about yourself.
Rough segue there.
No, real rough.
Ooh, we're feeling it today, ladies and gentlemen. We've been globe trotting around the world. It's hard work. So give us a break every once in a while. Yeah. And I'm Alex Daikaiju. I make monster cryptid related artwork. If you want to see more of that, I'm at Alex Daikaiju on Instagram, Alex DAIKAIJU. I make my own comics too for fun and profit. Be sure to check them out. You won't see anything else like them. And my sources today, I used, let me see if I can find them, because I definitely had to use Cryptid Wiki with a Z. Never let me down yet with their 100-foot wingspans. I used Google. I used Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn .fandom.wiki.
Oh boy.
If you want to fall down a rabbit hole of nonsense, they're your game. I used Encyclopedia of Cryptozoology, and I used Genesis Park for my sources today.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And passing along to the one, the only, Jasmine Maywith, Queen of the World, ruler from Ohio. Yes.
If you'd like to, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name is the same on both. It's Jasmine Maywith, JASMINE I did not have any sources today. My knowledge came from both Eli and Alex and what they shared with us today.
What did you think, Jasmine?
I think it's pretty cool. I like dinosaurs. I like thinking about dinosaurs existing in Africa. Some pretty nice, legit-ish sightings that we heard about. I like it when there's some credibility, when it's not just all BS like some other things. So I enjoyed listening to this one.
Oh, thank you for the feedback. Indelible. And moving along to, well, I say a lot of jokes. I make a lot of fun, but he's the man who keeps us on the run. Eli Watson, your editing of the episodes has been fantastic so far. Your management of the social medias is amazing in every way.
Unamazing.
Unamazing in comparison of how amazing you really are. untangle that. Thank you, everybody. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. My sources for today come from the Cryptids Wiki with a Z, the cryptidarchives.fandom.com, which is a better version of the Cryptids Wiki, and has genesispark.com, a bookofcreatures.com, the Pine Barrens Institute, truedinos.webnode.com, and Mysterious Universe. And my social media is at the Eli Watson on Instagram, but it would mean more to me if you followed the Cryptid Campfire page. Actually, that's a lie. Please follow and like my landscape photos, please.
Yeah.
It's the hearts. That is it. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
Badam Zinga.
Badam Zinga.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at straightupstrange.com.